Hi everyone. So today's video is going to be on how to rebrand your business. We're going to talk a little bit about if you're thinking about rebranding and you're not sure where to start. And here's actually what you need to know. So we have been working. Well, I've had C's Design. I'm director, and we've been running for about 11 years. We're actually on our 12th year now. So um, this video is an informative video, a bit about our process, about where businesses could go wrong, signs that you need a rebrand to a refresh, and what it costs roughly in terms of structure and some of the different options that we have for our clients. So um, basically, I'd say the one of the biggest questions that we get from a lot of people is, do I need to fully rebrand or shall I just have a brand refresh? So in terms of a brand refresh, we would always say to a client, if you've already got a brand that's quite structured and you've had it for quite a long time, look at these sort of companies like McDonald's or trying to think, like, well, I guess Pizza Hut, Burger King. A lot of food orientated brands have had similar sort of branding logos for quite a long period of time through their lifetimes, but they have slightly made changes, which is still recognizable. People still know it's McDonald's. They're not going to get rid of the big M, but they are going to refresh it and make it feel up to date. Sometimes, they're not going to use the same sort of branding that they did in the 90s, but then also in another sort of in another sort of way, they do need to sort of update the look and feel of the brand. So yeah, a refresh is basically something that we would normally work with on a client if they felt quite happy with the branding that they've got, but they do feel like it was missing something. It felt quite disjointed. Maybe it was done quite a long time ago. They're not completely wanting to change everything, but they do want to give a new look and feel to it without completely dismantling the identity. So that is something that we would recommend clients if they are going to do that. But then in terms of a rebrand, it's a full change. They've sort of never really paid any attention to sort of the brand before, and they might feel that the branding is outdated and they need to update that. So that is something that we would definitely sort of try to figure out in the early stages, in conversations that we would have with the client, which brings me really onto the process of what we do. We have 4 stages to our branding process. That is discovery, design, develop, and deliver. So in the discovery sort of stage of our branding process, we will always start it with the inquiry. Your inquiry begins with an initial email or phone conversation, during which will provide quotation, and we'll sort of talk to you about your goals and explain our process in detail. And then we will also jump on a discovery call, which we will discuss everything and learn about you, your business, your expectations, and which will help us sort of tailor our approach to you. And then we will move ahead. If you decide to go ahead with us, then we will send you out a questionnaire. So the point of the questionnaire really, for us, is to sort of understand who you are as a business. There's 2 sections. It's sort of about the business section, and then there's the actual design section. And the business section will sort of ask you questions about your goals, your audiences, who your main competitors are, and what the sort of thinking is behind the business. We'll ask you obviously even the business name, and any sort of history about the business and what it is and why you do what you do. And then the second part is the design element. So we will ask you to sort of send inspiration over to us, which we've had a lot of, mood boards. Pinterest is a big one. So we will say, like, if you can do it on Pinterest, great. And you can sort of understand that look and feel of what people are after when they send that across. It's quite interesting to see really some of the sort of routes that people can sort of go down, and I'd say 9 times out of 10 a lot of people have got the same vibe across the whole board on the inspiration. It's just they have obviously just not realized that until they've done it. So it is a great task for the client to fill out, and also for us to sort of work with as well. So this is something that we definitely think it's a good tool for us to sort of send out, and we've been working with that now for the past 3 to 4 years, and I think it's the best thing that we ever did really in terms of the branding process, because you actually almost create a brief for yourself. So that is something that we would do. So my advice to anybody that is going to a branding agency or is looking for a rebrand is to definitely think about what inspires you, what about your business, and have a little bit of a deep dive into sort of why you do what you do, your audiences, and also target your competitors, and also the what, like, the inspiration and what you're looking to sort of achieve. So they're things that we ask the client to think about. Once we have received that questionnaire, we will get started on the work. So in the design and develop phase, we will complete a first round of design concepts. So they're based on our discussions, the insights from your brand questionnaire, and we'll also develop and present the initial round of designs or concepts for your review. So that's when you probably don't hear from the agency or us for a couple of weeks, or 2 to 3 or 4, or depending on how long the scope is and how big it is. We will communicate obviously a little bit, but that's probably the only phase that we probably won't communicate as much. But then after that, we will ask for your feedback, and we'll ask you to review those concepts. So on every single sort of concept PDF that we send over to our clients, there is like a little explanation about why we've done what we've done, and that just gives you a look into sort of the again, like, why we've done it, to be honest. So it is really important for us to include that. And I think especially when, say, like, the PDFs being passed around, say like a few people within the business, then everyone can understand exactly what page you were on when you were designing that. So that gives us a really good sort of way to showcase that work. So obviously we ask for feedback, and a lot of people will say to us, like, what what is the best way to give you feedback? So some people like to do it via email, some people like to do it on WhatsApp, some people want to do it on a call or a Zoom. So we're currently working with a golf fashion brand, and they have paid for a higher package, and basically we're on the third round of amendments. But what is actually starting to happen now, which is quite interesting, is a lot of clients will sort of like really like the first sort of design that you do, and then they'll want to make some changes because they feel like, well, we've paid for this and we want to just try options. And I'd say a lot of people, it's a good thing to do, and most of the time, I'd say 80% of the time, people will always go with change sort of versions, or the amendments. There's that 20% that sometimes someone will say, we think you've nailed it, we literally don't want any more changes, and that's that. But for example, this client now, we're sort of working as a team together, and we're sort of back and forth in ideas and having a lot of Zooms and stuff. And what we've noticed is that sometimes you can almost prod at the original design so much that people end up going back to the start and actually end up liking the original concept that you did. So it's needed, and the process is needed. But in this case, sometimes it's the original idea that actually was the sort of stronger idea. So yeah, so obviously after the revision stage, then we will go to look to finalize. So we'll prepare the final files, and then we'll get them approved for sign off. So the next stage is delivery, and upon completion and approval of your branding, we will provide you with different file types. So a lot of people ask me what file types they need and why. So we will always present you with a goodbye little booklet, even though sometimes it isn't goodbye, and it will explain every single file type. So you will get a JPEG, PNG, EPS, PDF, and an SVG file. All of these have their own purposes. Some for, say, for example, if you're embroidering the logo onto clothes, or if you're importing it into Canva, or if you want to change your profile picture on your Facebook page or your Instagram page, or you want to overlay the logo onto sort of some graphics or imagery, or upload it onto your website. So there's always going to be a good way of using these files. And obviously, if you're ever stuck, then we always ask our clients to approach us. Moving on to the timeline, a lot of people will ask, how long does it take? So it is a bit like a piece of string. there's not always a right and wrong answer to that question. Some branding agencies will take, a year to work on something, but that could be a really, really large project that you're working with a large team. You're doing a lot of workshops and back and forths on things, and a lot of freelancers may turn around something in like a week. Our branding packages generally take between 3 to 6 weeks, depending on the package chosen. For larger projects, we'll obviously establish and agree on a timeline, and we'll always do that with a clientele anyway. But our ultimate goal is really to keep you satisfied and sort of streamline the approach with communication. So, for example, the golf project that we're currently working on, we started that back, I'd say it was late last year. And we're still sort of at the amendment stage now. So there is a process. It can take some time, but we're sort of getting to that final point. So I'd say within the next like few weeks, it'll be wrapped up. So yeah, it really does depend on the scope, and it's good to agree timelines with clients and not sort of leave them hanging. I think we find that a lot of people in this industry sort of struggles to communicate that and can sometimes hide away from messages or emails and so on. So it's always really, really good to just communicate with your clients and say, look, this is the sort of timeline that we're working on. Is this going to fit you? If they need it quicker, then you need to sort of come to an agreement on that. So the biggest thing really about price is our branding services can start from around £600. Now, a lot of people may say that's really cheap, and a lot of people could say that's really expensive. Our reasoning for this is just a starting point. So obviously our prices go up. The more you want, the more you pay for. So we are reasonable within what we charge. We're not a London agency. We're a North Wales agency. So obviously pricing is a little bit lower. We are actually getting a lot of clients from London at the moment, which is great. But like I said, some agencies may charge a lot more. I think it really does depend on scope. And I did actually watch another agency's YouTube video the other day, and the guy from that agency was saying, we can't guarantee or say a price because it's very different for every client. And I completely agree on that. When I'd say a 600 sort of pound offer on a branding, that is our smallest service, and you get the sort of basics, and they're for people that maybe want something quite specific. They know exactly what they want and they've already made those decisions, which doesn't happen a lot, but it's just down to budget really for people. Obviously, like seeing in this other video that I did see about, they were talking about how you can have a budget for a car. You could buy a car that was £700. You could buy a car for 30,000. It's just about what you can afford, what the budget is for this specific project, and also about how much work do you want us to do. So it's something that we would normally discuss with our clients before we obviously go ahead and sort of solidify that quotation. So yeah, that's sort of like the process really, and the cost. So the last thing that I said I was going to talk about, so where most businesses go wrong is just jumping straight into a logo. So there are so many accessible platforms these days, like Canva. There's apps, there's templates, and we do get it a lot where people will come to us for a quotation, and then they'll say, oh, I'll come back to you, because obviously they don't want to say that they can't afford the budget, which is fine. We can work to a budget, but like I said, you sort of get what you pay for. And basically they'll go and make a logo on Canva. Now, I've got nothing against Canva. We actually have started integrating one of our services into that. So we'll design the brand for you, and then we can do like a Canva setup at the end, which is great. So we don't gatekeep. We want our clients to be able to use their brand properly and not have to keep coming back to us every time they need a small change or they want to use it on a graphic. But what we do recommend is that the original early sort of start of when you're actually starting up a business, putting money into brand design and your identity is an investment. It is everything about that brand, and it's everything that will carry it forward for years to come. So Canva and have these templates, and a lot of these other apps do. But one thing that we will say about that is that Canva is a quick throwaway thing, and trends and things change. And obviously, what we try to do is keep the brand timeless, and we don't want we don't want something to look outdated, 3-4 years down the line. If like I said, if you go back to some of these other brands that are out there, Starbucks or um, FIFA, or I don't know, any sort of larger brands, they might do a refresh, but they sort of keep that same feel and look. And what actually is happening there is that they're not being outdated. Some of these brands have been around for 30, 40, 50 years. Burger King, for example, sort of re-brought back their old 70s look for the newest, most recent refresh. And I think that's amazing, because you should be able to utilize like what you've had and what sort of the early sort of foundations of that brand, and sort of bring it into your branding now. So what I would suggest is that you invest into a brand agency or a freelancer, or somebody that is able to design properly and have the design thinking behind it, and then obviously move forward from there. You can then use it on Canva and things like that. And I do think a lot of businesses will just jump into that quick logo. We need to just get a logo, throw it on the van, throw it any way you can, and that'll be that. Obviously, I understand that some of these companies are small businesses and may not need a full brand, especially when it's if it's just a one-man band, or somebody that really doesn't need like a full brand kit, and that is totally also understandable. But we would suggest that any business that has any sort of story, or or is in it for the long haul, to do that. But yeah, so branding is a great process. We love working with a lot of businesses, and we have many success stories from the branding that we do. And if you are looking for brand design, then I would consider some of the points that I've made, and to make sure that you don't just sort of go on these throwaway apps straight away and actually look into maybe working with a designer. You look at the process and make sure you're prepared for that beforehand. Look, like, understand your own business first before you sort of approach a designer, because it actually really comes into it when you're thinking about what the business is and who you are. And then obviously your budget, and what sort of inspires you, and what you're looking to get out of it. Yeah, so thank you very much.